Welcome back, Lelanders, to our first edition of Fight Talk. Now, I'm just reacting to the big fight that I watched last night, the biggest heavyweight fight in pretty much boxing history. And I know I've been mixing in the discussion with a little bit of my other podcast today, but since the discussion got so heated in one of the Jesse on Fire chats, I decided that I should do a whole episode dedicated to what I learned about Tyson Furry and how he will be fighting Mike Tyson if demons get their way. Now, I noticed a lot of the fight talkers talk about fighting, like Chill Shonen and who is it, Jesse on Fire. As much as they kind of like talk about everything openly, I think there's a whole demonic element to boxing that a lot of people just don't cover. So if you're not into demons, you probably won't want to watch this show. But if you actually believe demons are true, and you might have considered this already, that a lot of boxers get involved with demonic possession, well, then this is the episode for you. All right, so where I'll begin, this is like the boxing paranormal episode. So what we got here is a discussion this is Jesse on Fire's latest reaction video to the fights. And I put a comment that I believe that hardly anyone would understand, because unless you've studied boxing and the history of boxing and the history of demons, you'll probably have no idea what the hell we're talking about. We're talking about going back to some of the very first original fighters in boxing in American history. Sort of like Jack Dempsey, Jack Johnson, a lot of the other like old school heavyweight champs. So just to give a little quick background before we begin, I actually started watching boxing in about the early 80s because my dad was a boxing fanatic. So I watched all the fights that he watched, started off from like when I was a baby. So yeah, I've been pretty much watching 30 to 40 years of boxing. I've pretty much seen every boxing match, the biggest ones in the past 4 decades. So not to say that I'm like an expert fighter or anything, but yeah, I don't have an actual fighting background, but I do know a lot about watching boxing. So I'll just share, and I know a lot about the paranormal. So I'll share how those worlds connect. And some people might have already noticed some connecting, because Mike Tyson has actually been very open about the whole demonic thing a lot recently. He keeps talking about the God of War. A lot of people are like joking. They're like, ah ha ha, Mike Tyson talking about the God of War. Well, I don't think Mike Tyson is joking at all. I think he's really involved with some demonic possession stuff, and we'll get into the details of why in this episode. All right, so first we'll begin with reading my comment on the Jesse on Fire page. So I'll try to make it bigger and smaller so I can read it and you can read it too. Bigger and smaller, that's what she said. Now, Mike Tyson is planning on fighting and beating Tyson Furry. Why? To fulfill a vision that the God of War gave him, and to honor his dream of doing everything that Jack Dempsey did. Jack also slayed the giant Willard that nobody else could. So if anyone's watched like Mike Tyson's hotboxing show, like I knew nothing about all this stuff about Mike Tyson until I started watching hotboxing. I was like, holy shit, man. I knew there was something weird with Mike Tyson when I met him, but I never had any idea that it was this weird. Like, I never even used to believe in demons until about maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Then I got some evidence that it was true, and I was like, holy shit, man. There's a lot more to this, like the whole demons and boxing, than people are like willing to talk about. So we'll talk about it today. So anyways, surprise, surprise, someone actually is a boxing fanatic also like me and knows a lot of the history and has studied like the ancient fighters, not ancient, but the oldest. And this is what this guy had to say. And what is his name? Alexander. So very big shout out to Alexander and Jesse on Fire. This is where this comes from. So anyways, Alexander posted that Dempsey had loaded gloves and was a young, fresh fighter. Willard was a bum who got the title from an out of shape Jack Johnson, who was sick of the entire situation back in the day, and he just wanted to return to the US. So he had to lose the title and to lose all the haters. And then he also put Mike Tyson is a 55-year-old, and meanwhile Tyson Furry is in the prime of his life, like 32, 33 years old, and one of the greatest ever heavyweight champs. Even loaded gloves, together with all the drugs like steroids, peds in the world, won't help Mike beat Furry right now. So that's what I actually agree with a lot of what Allegander's saying. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And this is what I put in response. I said, yeah, I think you're mostly right. I should do an episode, which I'm doing right now, to explain it. I've actually met Mike Tyson at a convention in Toronto, and I have the ability to sense demons. Sadly, it's not a good ability to have. Mike has a very powerful one attached to him, super powerful. And I don't think he's joking when he hears messages from the God of War. The only other demon that I've ever encountered that was this strong was the one that's also attached to Buzz Aldrin, who I also met at a Fan Expo convention. And that demon has been keeping Buzz alive longer. So these demons have a lot of paranormal powers, or supernatural, however you want to talk about it. So I met him at the convention, yeah, and he brought the demon back from his time on the moon, Buzz Aldrin. And I believe that's why NASA hasn't gone back yet. We'll do a whole special on that later. I'll tie quite a bit in today. But if you don't believe me, wait till you see how the Artemis mission unfolds. If anyone hasn't heard about the Artemis mission, that's the NASA's latest plan to return back to the moon. And it's only supposed to take 4 years, and I think they're already over a year into it. So we're going to be going back to the moon, and if all of this is true, there's going to be some really wild shit that happens when people go back to the moon. I know, like, weirder than anyone has ever imagined. So that's what I was thinking. If anyone's wondered why that we haven't gone back to the moon and all this boxing stuff, surprisingly, it has a connection, and both of them have to do with demons. So we'll get a little bit more into the details about what the hell the background is about Mike Tyson and why I believe that he is possessed with a demon other than being able to sense it. We'll go over some of the actual evidence for it. Alright, so let's bring up the article about Mike Tyson. Or actually, before I do that, let's open the other image. That one's not it. Alright, Mike Tyson. So anyways, what happened is Mike Tyson came to a convention at Fan Expo Toronto. I had that image ready and I lost it. We'll try to open it. Yeah, so anyways, when he came to the convention, I didn't really get to talk to Mike Tyson directly, but I got to stand next to him like a lot because he was only a few feet away when he was talking to other people. And yeah, here it is. So here's the image. This is when, the Fan Expo in 2015. So this was a number of years ago. This is when I realized something was really weird with Mike Tyson, like demonic possession weird. And I didn't even fully know about demonic powers then. So I was just like getting introduced to actually being able to sense demons. I think maybe in my life I had sensed other demons before, but none were near as strong as the one attached to Mike Tyson. Like literally all the hair on my head, what little is left, all the hair on my arms, my body hair, everything just stood like a complete end. You know, your hair sticks up when you're in shock or something. That's the reaction I got when I was standing next to Mike Tyson. And at first I was thinking it was just because Mike Tyson, if anyone's never stood next to him, he's got freakishly weird physics, like his body type. If you ever stand next to him, like most people just are in awe about what kind of shape he's in. And if you don't know what I mean, he talked about when he was training, he used to do a training routine of 5,000 squats a day, every day. So what that resulted in, his thighs, like the largest part of his leg, it grew so big, it's like freakishly out of proportion. Like when you see him on video and you see pictures of him, it doesn't really show up. But when you stand next to him, you're like, holy shit, man. This guy has like the biggest fucking thighs out of any human. Like, I swear to God, like double the size in the next closest. So maybe you could find an Olympic athlete who does like that many squats and could come close. But Mike Tyson's got some freakishly big legs. And people are talking about that's where he gets his power from. I agree to that to a certain point. But I also believe that Mike Tyson has some demonic powers as well. No, and if anyone's wondering why the hell did I come to the conclusion that Mike Tyson was getting demonic powers, just to say this image is from, CTV. So CTV, big shout out to them. They published it in the Canadian Press June 2nd of 2015. So, all right. So to cover more about Mike Tyson and his supernatural powers and why I believe he has them, is when I heard him starting to speak on what is it, his show called Hot Boxing with Mike Tyson. If anyone hasn't seen that show, I highly recommend it, and it'll give you a better idea of like what the hell I'm talking about here. Because most people, if you haven't seen the show before, you might think of Mike Tyson as just a meathead, like a guy like me who just works out all the time and really doesn't have like the biggest intellect. But I think Mike Tyson has the whole polymyth thing going, where not only is he a super athlete, not only is he like super strong from that, he's also very super smart, and he's also very like history orientated. Like if anyone's heard the episode where he talks about Jack Dempsey and stuff, dear God, I had no idea that Mike Tyson was that much of like a book nerd. Like he has spent so much time training about all these, or like training his mind as well, not just his body, not just to learn boxing. But yeah, he knows all the history of like the greatest warlords in history. And that's where I should have started to clue in right away. Once he started mentioning like all the old warlords, a lot of these guys were probably demonically possessed as well, which gave them that ability to have like super abilities to like win battles in ancient times and stuff. So I'm not sure when exactly Mike Tyson got his demonic possession. Some people debate about demonic possession and say it happens when you get involved with drugs or if you had some sort of traumatic childhood and stuff. And I think a lot of these categories Mike could put a check for. He's talked about like growing up in Brownsville and how like a demon would probably be looking to possess people that lived in Brownsville because they had a lot of the issues that they were going through that related to the whole like weakening your body to becoming prone to demonic possession. Or it could be the demon just picked them. Like it saw a potential in him and was like, hey, I'm going to attach myself to this Mike Tyson guy because I think he has potential to fulfill their plans. If anyone's wondering, demons actually have like a lot of influence of what's happening on the earth. In our society, we've kind of shunned even talking about it. So most people have no idea that demons are actually taking part in world events and trying to influence how the outcome breaks down. It's a wild thing. Well, wouldn't be surprised if his tattoo has something to do with that demonic possession as well. Not saying that everyone that gets a face tattoo is a demon. I know even my family and friends have face tattoos, and I haven't sensed, well, some of them I haven't sensed demons on before. And I think with demons, they definitely go in different levels. Like sometimes demons will only be like minor demons, and they're not really that powerful. So yeah, they're not really going to have like giant influence on the world. But there's other demons that are higher up in the chain of command and demonic stuff. And yeah, if you get one of the top demons attached to you, see, that's one of the things that Freemasons probably don't know or don't talk about very much, is a lot of the top Freemasons also get involved in demonic possession. And I think why? Because they know that opening themselves up to it is also opening yourselves up to like a treasure trove of knowledge. Like some of these demons are thousands, if not like 1,000,000 years old. So they know a whole bunch of shit. So if you get yourself possessed by these higher level demons, that's where the temptation comes in to allow it to happen. To gain all that knowledge, to gain the power. The only issue is they also gain control about a lot of what's happening with your body. They can also keep you alive longer. Like, I don't know if anyone's heard about the crystal skulls before. There is some demonic possession with them, and they promised to keep the keeper, Mitchell Hedges, alive until she turned 100. And guess when she died? She died on her 100th fucking birthday. And she actually lives in the same city as me, so that's why I kind of kept up to date about what was happening with her, all the demonic possession stuff she was encountering. So, yeah, I don't know when Mike Tyson was demonically possessed. If I had to guess, it was probably early on in his childhood when he was going through a lot of the rough times in Brownsville, if I had to guess. So, yeah, the demons that are possessing Buzz Aldrin that I met at Fan Expo as well, it's also a super powerful demon. And the one that's possessed him is also keeping him alive longer. You probably wonder, like, how the hell is this Buzz Aldrin guy still alive? All the other astronauts have all died that went to the moon. He's the last one. And then people are wondering why the hell we didn't go back to the moon. Well, I think NASA actually figured it out that Buzz Aldrin was having this demonic possession to the point where they're like, holy shit, we can't send anyone back to the moon, because every time we're sending these crews up to the moon, it's risking bringing the demons that are trapped on the moon back to the earth. And if you look at the ancient texts, a lot of the ancient texts talk about when they got rid of demons, the only way they could imprison them to keep them away from people was to banish them to the moon, and then they'd be stuck there. So yeah, when this Artemis mission returns back to the moon, they're going to have the chance to bring back demons. And yeah, world events are definitely going to start taking some weird turns once we get more demons back on Earth that are helping like to change the outcome of what's happening in our society, what happens in our history. So not to make fun of Mike Tyson, I know some of the demons that attach themselves to the people aren't always super evil. So let's hope this God of War demon that's attached to him. Like, isn't it weird that everyone keeps hearing Mike Tyson talk about the God of War and everyone just chuckles? They're like, ah ha ha, Mike talking about the God of War. He's probably been smoking too much in his hotboxing episodes, doing too many of those penis envy mushrooms and stuff. But I don't know, like if anyone's heard when, Tyson Furry came on a guest on hotboxing. Let's bring up Tyson Fury's page next. All right, so Tyson Furry. All right, we already closed it, so I guess we'll just leave. Oh, there it is. Tyson Furry, if you haven't heard his whole story, like he just won the big fight against, was it Deontay Wilder? And yeah, he's like seemed to be able to rise from the dead in one of his previous fights where he was basically knocked out and then he got back up and managed to win the fight. And a lot of people are wondering like, how the hell did Tyson Furry like motivate himself? A lot of people are talking like, Tyson, how did you do it? How did you come up with the strength to like get up from that powerful shot and come back and win the fight? Then he's sort of like, you just got to believe in yourself, right? Well, a lot of times when it comes to like that sort of like abilities and believing yourself, demons will make you a lot more believe in yourself. Not to say that Tyson Furry is demonically possessed. He does do a lot of stuff with Jesus, and like you even saw on his hat, he was wearing the fish with Jesus and stuff. So I kind of wonder if maybe someone like a guardian angel is actually helping Tyson Furry get further in his career so that he really can battle the God of War demon. So what happened was Tyson Furry was a guest on Hotboxing with Mike Tyson, and you could feel the tension. You could like cut it with the knife. You could tell these two guys were chatting, trying to be civil, but you could tell like they were gearing up to fight each other one day. And if people are like, oh God, like that comment in the chat, Mike Tyson's too old, he can't fight anymore. Well, what happened after the interview? Mike Tyson ended up starting his boxing career up again. He fought Roy Jones Jr., who was just an active fighter like a couple years ago, and he destroyed Roy Jones Jr. And you could even tell like he was holding back. Like if he would have hauled off and hit Roy Jones in the face, that fight would have been over like within like a few seconds, right? But instead, he just showed off how he was still in shape. He came running in and did a whole bunch of body shots. And like you even seen Roy Jones' reaction after. He didn't like brag that he could beat Mike Tyson ever again. He knew right then and there that he was in rough shape and rough situation. Like he was in reasonable shape, but yeah, that whole fight, he knew that Mike Tyson spared him. And I think the main reason Mike Tyson spared him, he didn't want Tyson Furry and all the other people to know just how powerful the demon is that's still attached to him. Like if I had to guess, like you look at some of the old champions that came back and won the title, what is the record? Someone could put it in the chat in the YouTube. I think the record was what, George Foreman, when he came back at the age of 50 and won the title. So when you look at Mike Tyson, if he's like 55 or whatever, that's only 5 years past what someone had already done. So it's not like we're talking 20 years past or 30 years past. It's just like a mere 5 years, 5 trips around the sun, right? So yeah, so that's what I was thinking. When Tyson Furry and Mike Tyson were talking in that podcast, they even sort of hinted about the fight coming up. Like Tyson Furry wanted to make sure that when Mike Tyson said that he had evaded a lot of the testing throughout the years, so that he had pretty much like all these different diseases and stuff. I don't know what other drugs were in his system, but he joked, and I think he was partially honest, that yeah, the commission was letting him get away with murder. So like Tyson Furry was like wanted to make sure. He's like, Mike, did you ever have HIV? And then Mike was like, no, that's one of the few diseases he never had. So then Tyson Furry was like, okay. So I was thinking right there when he was asking him that question, he wanted to make sure that he wasn't going to be getting blood all over him from someone that has HIV, right? And how would that occur is if they actually fought each other one day. So, and if anyone hasn't heard the paranormal stuff that's happened with Tyson Furry, there's like a whole bunch of weird stuff with him too. Like when he was born, does it actually say the early career and how he was born, early life? Yeah, he was born to the gypsies, and I think the gypsies, they have a lot of history to do with the demonic stuff as well. Could be wrong about that in like normal times, like modern days, but I think they have a history of that. And then it says Furry was born 3 months premature, and he only weighed 1 pound. So right there, he was like pretty much dead. Like I know like today's day and age, you can survive being premature much earlier than that, maybe by a month or two, but yeah, back in 1988, that was like a really rare thing for him to survive. And I think that's how he got the name. His dad decided to name him Tyson after this baby who just wouldn't quit fighting to survive. Oh yeah, and he also lost 2 daughters the same way. Very sorry to hear that. So yeah, that's one of the things I was thinking right there. Tyson Furry already has like a really weird paranormal occurrence just involved in how he was born. Almost like it was destined for him to fight the God of War one day. Yeah, and then the other thing that happened when Tyson Furry was on the podcast with Mike, he talked about some of the horrible depression he went through and how he got out of it. So there's another clue about some of the weird shit that's been going on. Like, it's not weird for a boxer to get all depressed and to commit suicide. I think we've seen it happen, sadly, with, Arturo Gatti and some of the other great fighters. I don't know if that was really a suicide. I think that even went to court to debate if that's what really happened. But yeah, so it's definitely not an uncommon thing to happen. But what was uncommon was how Tyson was saved from his depression. Did anyone hear the story about how? Apparently, I could be getting this wrong, paraphrasing it. He was going to commit suicide and he was driving a sports car. I forget if he was going to drive it into a brick wall or drive it off a bridge, but he was planning to kill himself. So as he's like all wasted on drugs, driving in his car, ready to commit suicide, he got a vision or like a voice in his head that said, "Hey, Tyson Furry, it's not your time yet. What the fuck are you doing?" Right? So that voice managed to talk him out of committing suicide so that he could continue to fulfill his destiny. And some people would be wondering, like, what kind of destiny could Tyson Furry be fulfilling that was just in a normal life, right? Like maybe he's supposed to be born or have some new kids born, or maybe he's going to win some Nobel Peace Prize, or maybe he's going to find the cure to cancer. It's like, no, I don't think that's what Tyson Furry was saved for. I think he was saved for the big match, the match against the God of War. So let's continue on. Let's look a little bit about Mike Tyson and when he was talking about his history, about what he knows about different fighters. I found it really weird that one of the ones, it's very telling about this whole match taking shape. It turns out Mike Tyson based his entire career trying to imitate Jack Dempsey. And it's kind of weird. They almost have like a similar look, a grin on their face when they like grin. And they both had like the identical fighting styles, where Jack Dempsey was like a shorter fighter for a heavyweight champ, and he would just run in and knock people out with like crazy knockout power. So I'm not trying to say that Jack Dempsey was also demonically possessed, but I would not be surprised if he had some sort of entity attached to him as well. So yeah, when you look at all the different fighters and fights that Jack Dempsey had, one of the biggest fights of entire career was when he fought heavyweight champion Jesse Willard. And who this Jesse Willard guy was, let's fill Jesse Willard's story in quick too. I know anyone who hasn't heard boxing from like the old days, this should be all new news to you. I would never have learned it unless Mike Tyson taught it to me on his podcast, or he taught everyone. So what happened was this Jesse Willard guy was 6'6", sort of like how Tyson Furry is like a freaking giant, and he was just destroying everyone. I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of his big fights came against the biggest names of the sport. A lot of people started to believe that Willard could not be beat, that he was just too big, he's just too powerful, he was too agile for a big guy. Start to sound familiar? So yeah, when I was thinking that Mike Tyson wanted to fulfill the legacy of doing everything that Jack Dempsey did, even if it wasn't demonic possession, he really just wants to beat a giant that's considered unbeatable, to prove that he was just like Jack Dempsey. So what happened is Willard's one of his biggest career wins was against Jack Johnson. And if anyone hasn't heard of him, he was one of the greatest black boxers in early boxing history. And he was the one that Joe Rogan talks about on his show all the time. Sadly, he died in a car accident, I believe, after like some segregation talk really pissed people off, or pissed him off. And I think he got kicked out of somewhere for being black. Yeah, so that's not right. But yeah, sadly, that's the way Jack Johnson apparently died. And yeah, but he ended up losing to Willard. So yeah, so that was where like everyone started to believe like Jack Johnson was unbeatable, and the first person, or the one of the first people to finally beat him, turned out to be Willard. And like the person in the chat was saying, the Jesse on Fire chat, is what it was is like Willard was that unbeatable giant. Jack Johnson came in, defeated him, and I think that was like the turning point in Willard's career. Oh yeah, what was the person, Jesse on Fire, saying that he believed that Willard cheated to win and all this? I don't know how true that is, because Willard, fucking guy, was like 6'6", talented boxer, and a lot of the other boxers were way smaller, way shorter, probably not as talented. Well, maybe as talented, but still, like, that was a weird setup, how Jack Dempsey had to slay the giant. So really, if Mike Tyson wanted to fulfill his whole career, his goals as a boxer, he can't just be the youngest heavyweight champ. He can't just go in and destroy people like Jack Dempsey did with this wild style of just knocking people out right away. But he also had to slay a giant. And I think Mike Tyson tried to slay giants in his career. Like, he tried to beat Lennox Lewis, never could. And yeah, that was pretty much the end. So his career was never really fulfilled until he could beat an unbeatable giant. So I don't know if anyone else noticed in the Tyson Fury versus Wilder fight, you know how Wilder almost won when he knocked Fury down twice? He did it with the Mike Tyson style, being in real close, doing the close hook shots. He caught him with the shot behind the ear. It would have knocked most people out, because that's like your equilibrium weak spot. That's actually where Fedor Emelianenko's career ended. Once he got hit really hard behind the ear, his career was never the same again. Well, it could be. He's still trying to come back, but I don't believe it will be. So yeah, that's one of the weirdest parts about this whole situation, is Mike Tyson has the potential to have the style, like that inside knockout power, to actually finish Tyson Fury. I know a lot of people are joking and they're like, or serious, making fun of Tyson, saying he's just too old. But look what he was doing to Roy Jones Jr., right? He proved that he still has the ability to run up to a fighter and put incredible pressure. And that pressure on the inside with just real short power shots. And that's actually Tyson Fury's weak point. We've seen it in the Wilder fight. So I don't know, like, when it comes to the demonic possession and stuff, and if the God of War, all this talk Mike Tyson's talking about, I think that's what it is. The demons really are trying to like organize how the world events are playing out, and they've had this on the books for a long time, where they anticipated, they helped Tyson Fury survive his near death at birth, survive the depression, and even survive these incredible fights with Wilder, all to set something up. The vision in his head was saying, it's not your time yet. It's not your time. So what was the time for? For him to fight the God of War. I don't know. It seems like a stretch, and a lot of people aren't going to believe this. But I think what's going to happen is, as time goes on, Tyson Fury's even hinted at it. His whole life revolves around boxing. He's like, once he's done boxing, not to like say he's going to commit suicide for sure, but he's facing a severe depression bout. Like, even when he talked about beating the Klitschko's, He's like, once he beat the Klitschko's, that's when he started to plummet down depression because he had reached that apex. So that new apex that's keeping him going, he has to beat someone really good. And once he does, his career is going to be over, and possibly his whole meaning for life will be over. So it's kind of weird, really, like how Tyson Furry really talks about how he has some big super fight that no one knows about yet that's going to be bigger than all the fights of the ages, and that's what his whole life revolves around. So I don't know, like, to think that the demons would go this far to organize our history to not only like bring Mike Tyson up to this like super powerful point, and a lot of people are going to count Mike Tyson out. They'll look at that Evander Holyfield fight against, who is it, Vitor Belfort, and they'll be like, oh, Mike Tyson doesn't have a chance. He's too old. He's too old like Holyfield. But dear God, man, he went so easy on Roy Jones Jr. and just destroyed him. So I think that like God of War, if he's actually in Mike Tyson, controlling him, maybe not fully controlling, you can almost tell like the way Mike Tyson acts, he has like wisdom of like beyond belief, right? Like I know he studied a lot of fight tapes and he probably studied a lot of history books, but to get really that smart, like it's almost at the point where he has like the wisdom of thousands, if not millions of years at his disposal. I know a lot of people that haven't seen Mike Tyson's podcast, they probably will never believe it because they've never heard the episodes where he talks about it. But man, if you tune in to like his archive and watch the episodes, it'll fucking blow your mind how much he knows about ancient warlords, how many people they killed, how the battles went, how they managed to win them. So I don't know, like it's really the battle on Earth is we got angels and demons that are fighting each other all the time, and we're just pawns within this big play that's occurring. So I don't want to make fun of anyone trying to like say that Mike Tyson's an evil demon and saying that Tyson Furry has like angels that have been keeping him alive to set up this battle, but I don't know. This is all just my guesses, and I'm no expert in anything really. I've been basically a janitor my whole life, so yeah, so like really, I could be wrong about this, but I think I would just share it because I've been talking to a lot of different people about, holy shit, when people are talking about like what's Tyson Fury's next big match, I think if he fights Mike Tyson, he'll be in for the fight of his life. Like really, Tyson with that God of War mentality, he's going to go in there and he's not going to pull punches like he did with Roy Jones Jr. He's going to go in there and he's going to be aiming for the head. And I think Tyson Furry could be like a sacrificial offering for the God of War. Now, if anyone wants to check into my archive, I do a lot of videos. I actually had a recent guest on who's an expert about human sacrifice and how it's worked over the past thousands of years. And yeah, we'll have to check because wherever the fight happens to be picked, I'll have to check to see what spots. Because there's actually specific ley lines on the planet where the September 11th sacrifice took place. You know, the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and the Boston airport are all on a direct straight line. It just happens to be the line of sacrifice that connects Mexico to Stonehenge. And I checked on Mars to see how that same energy field reacts there. Guess what else is on that line? Mars' 3 biggest volcanoes. So we're really starting to see like the world, a lot of people have no idea how it works. We think it could be aliens created the planet, could have just been created randomly by like evolution, or maybe gods created it. So when we start to see like why were the ancient people so into sacrifice, I think sacrifice plays a bigger role in how the whole universe operates than people realize. Not to promote human sacrifice, I'm like one of those people that researches it like other people research murder mysteries. So I'm definitely not like promoting human sacrifice or anything. I just study it, right? So yeah, and if anyone wants to check out the archive, the guest that I had on, he talks all about it, and he was a politician that ran against Arnold Schwarzenegger and the governor for California. So yeah, he's definitely like an up there guy, knows what he's talking about. And these human sacrifice rituals that are occurring, I wouldn't be surprised if the Mike Tyson Furry fight happens. It's going to be in a stadium or a facility that's on one of those sacrifice lines. And if it is, dear God, we better pray for Tyson Furry because I think he's in for one hell of a fight. I know a lot of people look at Mike Tyson's age and be like, oh, he's 55. Just remember George Foreman. How old was he when he won the title back? what, 5 years difference? You think 5 years is really going to matter for Mike Tyson? Like, it's almost weird how Mike Tyson's career sort of dropped down right when it was at its peak, and there was nothing really that caused it. Like, I know he said he went through different concussion issues, but he never had like severe beatings as bad as, like, say, Wilder took in the last fights. There was no real reason why his skill should have just plummeted. So I wonder about that too. Did the demons who were organizing this say, hey, let's take Mike and put his career on hold for a while until we can get Tyson Furry born and like going so that his career is big, to organize this giant play to all weave together into like the ultimate human sacrifice fight. So yeah, it really will, I believe, if Mike Tyson ends up getting a fight booked with Tyson Furry, look out, people. It's really going to be one of the biggest world events that we've ever seen. And just wait, if you don't believe me about this demon stuff, once NASA returns to the moon with people, we're going to start seeing more demons coming back with the astronauts. I don't know what astronauts are going to go there that are going to be subject to demonic possession. I don't think there's any spacesuit that can prevent it. And really, when you think about Buzz Aldrin, some people joke, but he also does have that Masonic connection, right? So maybe that was part of the ritual as well. He opened himself up to demonic possession using the Freemasons' highest level skills, and they knew that he was going to come back with something powerful. And I think these demons, they sometimes lay low. Like, if they're in control, they don't always have to make you act like a maniac. They can make you act like a maniac for like 5 years and then cool it down so that you act like really nice, really nice. But that demonic possession is always there as a potential. I know Mike Tyson right now is like loved by so many people around the world. I love the guy too. I'm a very like religious person. I believe that we should try to love everyone, even demons. So yeah, it's like that's the only way you can defeat a demon is by loving it, really, right? So I don't know. We'll see what happens in this fight. Maybe Tyson Furry can pull off a miracle and actually stop Mike Tyson from finishing him, but that's what Mike's planning. He wants to fulfill the prophecy of Jack Dempsey. He wants to fulfill the prophecy of the God of War. And he even told everyone in that last big fight, he had a comment talking about the God of War again. Everyone's just laughing. Mike took too many mushrooms, smoking too much weed. But they don't know the history about the demons and how serious this shit really is. So yeah, I guess I'll pray for everyone. And yeah, let's hope that even if these world events do take place, it's weird how sacrifice is one of those things that keeps our planet going. So I don't know if this is what it's come to, that there's got to be some crazy ass fight of the fucking millennia. Like, we talked about Tyson Furry and Wilder as being like the fight of the century or whatever. If Mike Tyson fights Tyson Furry and it's a back and forth battle of like near death that they just won't quit, can you imagine how bigger that is going to be than the Wilder fight? Like, I don't know. And I think that demon, he won't hold back. He won't hold back like he did against Roy Jones. And like, you could even see it. I don't know if anyone watched that Roy Jones fight, but Roy Jones came out of it with like the fear of God in his eyes. Like, you seen his reaction to that beating he took, and he was like, oh my God, right? Like, Mike Tyson was way stronger than he anticipated. And Roy Jones has fought so many strong fighters. He even moved up to heavyweight for a while. So he got a taste of what like that power is like. And as much as Mike did those 5,000 squats a day, I think there's more to it than that, than where he gets his power from. Yeah, if anyone else has any information about Mike Tyson's tattoo, maybe that has some sort of tribal meaning to do with demons as well. I don't know. But yeah, if you could put it in the chat, really appreciate it. All right, so I guess we'll wrap up here. Normally I do a whole bunch of sponsor messages and stuff, so I guess I'll do that quick as well. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. I know we got some live viewers and likes, but no one joined the chat. I don't blame you. I know I've been sort of ranting and raving, and there wasn't really a time for anyone to jump in. But yeah, so that's just, I think I covered everything. Willard's career, how, yeah, I think we did cover it all. So anyways, let's finish with my patron message. And if you want to check out my show archive to learn more about human sacrifice rituals, how it connects to demons and volcanoes, just check out my Magi show archive. I'll probably try to link it in the video after, but YouTube won't let me do it for a while until they finish rendering the video. So anyways, let's go to the Patreon. Oh, Andy Ruiz just joined the chat. Thank you for putting in a chat in here. He says that Mike Tyson really is a demon. Yeah, that's what I should emphasize more about the demonic thing. Like, I don't know. I never believed in demons my whole life. I thought it was just all bullshit. And then I actually had some family members disclose to me about some of the demon stuff that they've encountered, and for me to watch out, because they know I do a lot of like ancient mysteries research into sacrifices and stuff, and it's a real fucking serious thing. Like, demons, they help people that are in really rough shape. Like, if their life is down the tubes, or if they get depression really bad, the demons will help you recover it, but they usually want something back in exchange. So yeah, whatever the demon was that was helping Mike Tyson this whole time, I think he wants something back in exchange too. And he wants the battle versus Tyson Furry. It's going to be like the biggest war we've ever seen since like the ancient times. Yeah, the stage has really been set for it. No, and just to like clarify, like the only times I've ever met like demons and noticed their power was Mike Tyson and Buzz Aldrin. Why both of those guys have such powerful demons? The only thing I could think of is Mike Tyson because of his war ability and fighting, and Buzz Aldrin because he went to the moon where all the ancient demons are imprisoned, and he brought one back with the help of the Freemasons. And not to say all Freemasons are evil. I know some are good, some are evil, just like any other group of people, and a lot of them have no idea about this demon stuff because I'm pretty sure it's like past the 33rd degree. They're not going to tell you about the demon stuff until you actually reach the top of the food chain. Yeah, and let's hope that all this demonic sacrifice and stuff really isn't going to be the end of the world. I think in a case like this, it's really like how the world events are going to plan out. Right, so let's see, we got another question. Do you think Fury being named after Mike Tyson was just a coincidence or done on purpose because of this occult stuff? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like the way Tyson Furry was born and he was named after Mike Tyson was because some sort of paranormal occurrence happened to keep him alive. Like, what did we say? That he was born at 1 pound and born like 3 months early? When you think about it, by all means, he should have died. And something kept him alive. And if you even think about some of the old like warlords that were kept alive by paranormal stuff, if anyone's looked into how Hitler survived, Hitler was actually nearly killed over and over and over again. And all these paranormal occurrences kept keeping him alive, kept keeping him alive, kept keeping him alive. So it was like one case was he was getting shot at as a messenger in the trenches, and the demons would always tell Hitler when to duck. So when he was like running, trying to carry the message, and he heard a message telling him to duck, he would duck and survive. So everyone's like, how the hell is this Hitler guy keep surviving? It's like he had a demonic attachment to him as well. Like you look at Hitler, like who else would be the poster child for demonic possession, right? What is some other cases demonic possession that Hitler survived? Oh yeah, the Allies kept bombing his plane, like rigging it with explosives. So when he would fly somewhere, they would try to detonate it, and the detonator would fail. The detonator would fail. The detonator would fail. And they're like, how many times do we got to rig this guy's plane to explode? And still, he just keeps surviving and surviving. So I think that's what happens, is these demons are surprisingly powerful, where they can keep people alive for like indefinite. Like you look at the Crystal Skull and how it kept Mitchell Hedges alive till she was 100, and then she dies on her 100th birthday. Like, I don't know, people doubt that demons are real, but the more you look into it, it's like, dear God, the powers of angels and demons, they play a much bigger role in our society than most people are willing to admit. And I know a lot of fight channels like Jesse on Fire and who is the other one, like Chael Shonen. Do you think they can really talk about this demon stuff? Like, I doubt they would even be allowed to, because like they would just lose all their viewers. They'd be considered wild, and no one would watch their shows anymore. They'd lose all their reputation. Like, I don't really have any reputation at all. This is my first Fight Talk episode. I have a whole background about researching paranormal stuff, so that's where I'm actually allowed to talk about it and not really risk everything, right? So let's give Andy Ruiz a big shout out for joining the chat. It was nice to talk to someone about this. I wanted to mention in my other gaming podcast today, but I was thinking a lot of gamers aren't really into this stuff. This is more for like the hardcore fight fans and the ones that actually look into the ancient history of why people fight, why people become boxers, what drives them. Some people say it's like, oh, it's just like the money that drives them, or it's just the hookers, or it's just like the drugs. But I think it goes beyond that, right? A lot of these fighters have like an instinctual desire to fight that comes from demonic possession. And who knows, like I looked at the ancient history of demons in the Vedic text, and some of them were good and some of them were bad. And I think some of them will have like double sides, where a demon can be really nice, very like, charismatic, but then they can also flip at the flick of a light switch and all of a sudden be like super evil. So that's kind of like a lot of people have noticed with Mike Tyson. Over the years, he's become this super nice guy. I love him to death. When I listen to his podcast, he seems like a genius, right? So I'm like, holy crap, man. It's like, you got to watch demons. You're not going to be able to find demons just by looking at someone who's evil all the time. You even got to watch the people that are nice, because even the nice people have potential for it. It's really scary in a way, but in a way we have to think about the earth as a whole. We're lucky the creator puts all these battles between angels and demons on the earth, or how boring would the earth really be, right? At least we got so much action. Like when you were watching that fight versus Tyson Furry and Wilder, even though it's like such brutal violence, you just feel that thrill of like, we're alive. These battles and conflict is what our whole existence really, it gravitates to it. Not to say that like everyone should be into violence, but dear God, man, it is part of our like soul, like humanity. We love seeing people battle. It's just something about it, right? That's one thing that I've hated about hockey. Ever since they took the fighting out of hockey, it's like I can't even watch it anymore. It's actually sickening. All right, so yeah, we won't get into too much more details about Mike Tyson's like bad history and stuff. Everyone knows that he has a good side and a bad side like anyone else. I just think his good side and bad side has extreme potentials for like something that we've never seen before. So yeah, good luck to the astronauts that are going back to the moon. Hopefully they can come back without any severe demonic possession. People always wonder why we didn't go back. Can you imagine NASA trying to explain this to people? They're like, sorry guys, we can't actually go back to the moon because some of our astronauts came back with like severe demonic possession. Can you imagine if NASA tried to tell people that? So really, they've just been stalling for like 50 years trying to come up with every excuse in the book. Even like acknowledging, oh, maybe it was the aliens that kept us away. It's like, I don't think it was aliens. I think there's a lot of demonic stuff that we've been keeping ourselves away from. And I bet you Buzz Aldrin's demon, like when I met Buzz Aldrin in Toronto, guess what he was talking about? He said that he hated NASA's guts. And why? Because he wanted them to go back with humans to the moon. That was his main goal in life, was to try to get humans back to the moon. He's been fighting and fighting and fighting to try to get humans back to the moon. And then people could say, why does Buzz want people back on the moon so bad? Like we already explored it. There wasn't really anything that good there. But then you start to think about the demon thing, right? Maybe that's why. He was like, holy shit, his goal was to try to get humans back to the moon so that the rest of the demons could come back. I think how it works is demons can only ride one person. So if there's like 50 of the top demons and a person comes to the moon, the top demon will take that person, but the other demons all have to wait until more people come back. So yeah, that's where the battle comes in. Why Buzz Aldrin has been fighting with NASA, trying to get more astronauts back, and how NASA has delayed it so much. All right, so let's see. Yeah, Wilder wore some African voodoo costume for the walk into the fight, and Tyson wore his Roman centurion uniform. Oh my God, yeah, I didn't even notice that symbolism. Actually, I thought of it a little bit because some of the ancient Thrace warriors were giants, so that's where I thought he was getting that from. He was like dressing up like the Thrace Maximus. If anyone's ever heard of Maximus, he was like the tallest Roman emperor in history, and I think, what was he, like, I think 8'7" or something. So he was like really tall and super agile, just like Tyson Furry. They said that, he was a Thracian warrior. He joined the Roman legions at the lowest rank, but because of his giant size and agility, he rose all the way up to emperor. So it just goes to show you, like, yeah, there was a lot of ancient symbolism in those walk-ins. Thank you for bringing that up. I didn't even realize that. Well, I kind of realized it, but now when you repeated it, I was like, holy shit. Yeah, I don't know, like, how many of these fighters actually get demons attached to them? If I had to guess, it's probably like maybe not all the fighters, but the fighters that make it all the way to the top, they would probably be more prone to it because the demons would see that potential. They'd be like, hey, maybe we should demonically possess this guy. I actually had another guest on the show that talked about African demonic possession. If you want to jump into the archive, it was Santeria. Santeria is one of the ancient religions, I guess, from like the Caribbean, partially Africa, that talks a lot about demonic possession as well. And they believe a lot about it as well. They're also a religion that has to do with sacrifice and stuff. I think they're the only Christian denomination that still does sacrifice. Whereas like most other ones said, hey, Jesus was sacrificed. We never need to do it again. But yeah, not Santeria. So that's a pretty wild connection. Never even thought of that. So yeah, if anyone wants to hear more about the Santeria demonic stuff, I mentioned it briefly in the last episode we did. I think that was the second last episode I recorded of the Magi Show. If you want to check, I got a playlist that has all the episodes in it. Alright, so I think I should wrap everything up. I've actually done like 4 podcasts today, and each one was about an hour or 2 long, so I'm really losing my voice, but I appreciate everyone for coming in the chat and helping out with the awesome material there. Yeah, Andy Ruiz, is that the same name as one of the popular fighters I used to watch growing up? Can't remember when he retired, but yeah, he was really good too. Alright, so I think we'll just leave off the show at there, unless any of the viewers got more questions or comments. And yeah, if anyone wants to hear more of my fight shows and fight talks, just let me know in the chat. I'll try to keep the channel going. Like, I already do video games, I already do travel vlogs, and I do video game stuff. Yeah, I mentioned that, but the fight talk stuff I was thinking I want to get into more, because I noticed that like a lot of fight people that discuss it, they cover a lot of the angles, but I don't think anyone's really covering like the true nature of boxing, why some people have that drive to fight, and it goes beyond the money, it goes beyond the fame, it goes to like a place deeper than a black hole, right? All right, so yeah, I wish both of these fighters luck, Mike Tyson and Tyson Furry, and we'll see. Maybe this is all wrong and their fight will never get organized, but if I had to guess, that's the direction we're going. And everyone's wondering too, why did Mike Tyson start this fight organization? Shouldn't he have just like moved on in his life and got away from boxing? What's the deal with it, right? So people are saying Mike already has all the money he needs. He already has all the fame he needs. He already has like all the boxing accolades he needs. But they don't realize he still has to slay a giant, and he still has to do the will of the demonic, possibly even the god of war. Can you imagine Mike's not joking and he actually has the god of war attached to him? That'd be a fucking wild coincidence, but yeah, we'll see. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. When Tyson Furry got up from those knockdowns, we got another question. Do I think demons helped it? Could be demons. It could be angels. And that's why I was wondering too, is like maybe that's why Tyson Furry is so into Jesus. Like he started to realize, like when he was hearing these voices telling him to stay alive so that he could accomplish his goals, he's like, oh shit, man, I got to turn to Jesus because this shit's getting serious, right? Like, I don't know, like most people, like anyone really, should never believe in demons because it's so wild. But once you actually start to occur it in like real life and you start finding evidence for it, it's like, holy, it just opens a whole can of worms. So even anyone's watching this that doesn't want to believe in demons, you're probably better off not believing in it. Because once you start digging deep into it and you find the history of human sacrifice, like that September 11th line, oh man, it starts really to make me sick. Like I even have nightmares about it sometimes. So it's like, yeah, if you want to stay clear of the demonic learnings and all that stuff, it's not a bad idea. If you want to believe that it's fake, try to believe that as long as you can. But we'll see. Once NASA comes back, that could settle it for good too. Like even if this Tyson Furry Mike Tyson fight happens, Mike Tyson wins, becomes the oldest champion, slays the giant, fulfills the prophecy of the god of war, people still probably won't believe it until more demons start coming back from the moon. And then once demons start coming back from the moon in masses, that's when everyone's going to start to realize. We'll be like, holy shit, man, there's like a lot of weird demon stuff coming back from the moon. How is this ever possible? And then we start unlocking like the actual clues of how the universe works. I don't really think it's aliens. I think it's more angels and demons. Oh yeah, that's Drake too. If anyone knows about Drake and the symbolism he puts into the Toronto Raptors, he put in like all that demonic Freemason stuff as well, like the owls. Like everyone's wondering why the Toronto Raptors wearing owls. Well, it happens to date back to like the Bohemian Grove stuff. And if anyone's wondering the history of that owl from Bohemian Grove, it's actually not even the original. The original is in a place called Magog in Quebec. And the reason that is that was one of the spots where the Freemasons have their largest outdoor lodge. And it's called the Golden Rule Lodge. And all the top Freemasons, they meet there, I think, once a year. Or I could be wrong how often they meet there. And they try to keep it on the down low. That Bohemian Grove, the one that Drake symbolizes in his music, it's actually the cover. I have another video that I'm going to try to release about that in a travel vlog coming up hopefully before Halloween. I'll have it finished editing. Yeah, so thanks for bringing up Drake as well. That's what I was thinking too. Anyone didn't notice the Toronto Raptors were an absolute garbage team, not just until Masai Ujiri arrived, but once Drake started adding in all that occult stuff. When Drake added in the occult stuff, it's like all of a sudden the Raptors went from the garbage team to like the best in the league, even to the point of getting Kawhi and winning the championship. So a lot of people will say, oh, the occult stuff has nothing to do with it, but I think it does in more ways than people realize. Yeah, if like demons can control you for music, that is one of the oldest sayings in the world, right? That the sweetest music is played by the devil. So that's one of the things there. Not to say Drake's like super evil. I don't want to like throw him under the bus because I actually love a lot of his music. That's what I think. Like if you got demons making music for you, you'd be surprised how well it comes. Like they really have like thousands of years of like experience, maybe even millions of years. Who knows how old the demons really are? Like if the Vedic text is true, there used to be like entire Earth civilizations that got wiped out, restarted, wiped out, restarted. So some of these demons could even predate humanity. It's pretty wild. Yeah, so God bless everyone and thank everyone for tuning into the chat. Let's go to the Patreon and give a shout out to everyone who's been helping out the show. All right, thanks again, Suki, Dan, Jim, Ray, and Travis, and everyone else at Patreon. Really appreciate you guys and ladies. Let's list my affiliate links next. So if anyone wants to help out my channel and they don't have the money to do it for Patreon, I don't blame you. I'm very broke all the time in life as well. I've definitely rode the roller coasters of having money and not. So if you want to help out yourself and me at the same time, a lot of these links you can all use for your channels. So if you have a website or YouTube stuff, you can add them and they'll help you and help me. So anyways, Society 6 is a store. Finishing quick is my specialty. It's a saying that comes on t-shirts and bed sheets, both popular with the ladies. Hideout TV will pay you to watch videos similar to YouTube, except instead of giving all the revenue to the creators, they give a portion to the creators and the viewers. And if you watch it on Amazon Fire Stick, you get like double the points. But anyways, Swagbucks, it'll pay you to shop. Similar to how all these companies steal our data when we buy stuff. Well, Swagbucks, if you allow them to do it on purpose, they'll give you percentages back on your purchases. And the percentage varies depending what you buy. GameKit, it'll pay you to play video games. That's how I got into streaming video games. They'll pay you to like make it to level 20 in a game. And if you make it, they'll give you like $1. But the hook is they try to get you so hooked into the game when you play it to that level that you'll start making deposits, like buying the in-game stuff. And then I've also got the crypto stuff, the e-begging. No, Free Bitcoin is a website that's like a wallet system for crypto. So if you haven't tried crypto before and you don't have money and you want free wallet system to use, they give away these loot boxes. You can open the loot box, get tiny bits of crypto, put it in the wallet, and just keep adding it. And I also got BetFury. But you have to be careful with these crypto wallets. Make sure that if you're a gambling addict, you just stay away because they have like casinos built in. So you can take that free loot box money and then bet it. You can even bet it on boxing and stuff. But I don't really bet anymore because I don't have the greatest luck and I have addiction issues. So I try to stay away from casinos. So yeah, if you want to get into crypto without any deposits, that's a great way to do it. Just make sure you follow your regional laws, including for the virtual mate sex machine. It's for adults and men only. But if ladies need a sex machine, they know who to call. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm not kidding, is we got a $10 coupon code from Virtual Mate for a purchase of 150 or more. You just got to put in the words lying BS. That's LYNBSN. No, it's not lying bullshit. It's actually a legit coupon code. They actually even sent me one of the Virtual Mates. It gets mixed reviews. Some people love it, others hate it. It's probably one of the best things for lockdowns. But yeah, so just remember that. And all I had to do to get it was give the money. Sadly, I didn't have the actual coupon code at that time, so I probably paid more for it than you would. Right, so I've also got my website, and we'll just jump back to the screen, make sure we covered everything. Right, so yeah, the owl stuff from Drake definitely connected to Moloch. And if you look at the history of where that Moloch and all that stuff goes to, it's a lot about what I talk about on my Magi show. If you want to watch that last episode we did on human sacrifice and the September 11th ley lines, dear God, it'll blow your fucking mind how much of this is actually happening all around the planet, and people just really don't talk about it, or they don't see it, or they don't even want to see it. And I don't blame them. It's like finding out that the September 11th attacks were all in one line. It actually freaked the shit out of me. I'm like, I heard so much September 11th stuff before. I never even realized they're all in a fucking straight line. I was like, what are the fucking odds of that, right? So anyways, yeah, thanks again for joining in the chat. And let's wrap up. We'll go to the fire screen. And yeah, let's go to the fire screen. Or no, we'll just wrap it up from here. So thanks, everyone. I'll try to do another show soon on the fight stuff. I was thinking I'm going to do a live stream for Bellator. No, that was one of the things. Where is it? Now, Bellator is one of the perfect organizations for me to do live streams because everyone can watch it free on YouTube. So I might do some live play-by-play on Bellator. So if anyone wants to check that out in the future and they're watching Bellator fights, just be like, hey, look who's doing live play-by-play. Hopefully it doesn't get me a copyright strike. I won't actually show the fights, but we'll probably do a fire screen in the background and cover some live stuff. Yeah, and if I get any updates about what's happening with Mike Tyson and Tyson Furry, and if we actually get a date set for when they're going to fight. I know a lot of like the commentators are like, what's Tyson Fury's next big fight? I'm not guaranteeing that it will be. I think he has a mandatory title defense against someone else. But once that's all over, I bet you that's going to be on the table. Him and Mike Tyson. We'll see what happens. And if it doesn't, then I guess that'll prove this is all wrong. But we'll see. Only time will tell. All right, bye, everyone. Take care. Bye for now. Later. Yeah, thanks again for the great comments. Can't thank you enough. It's like, yeah, you were one of the best people to join in the chat I could even imagine. All right, thanks, man. Later.